Today, we're looking into a case from South Yorkshire, England, one that really shook the country back in 2019, the Shiregreen child murders.
Yes, it's more than just a crime report, isn't it? It's about, well, the terrifying consequences of a long-buried secret. How that fear of discovery can just destroy everything.
We're examining the actions of Sarah Barris and Brandon Machen, and our sources, they really lay bare this conspiracy. It's rooted in this hidden, incestuous relationship, and the plot they carried out was just brutally methodical.
That's right. We need to really trace the timeline, try to understand what that tipping point was. How do people go from being seen as caregivers to, well, to killers, all driven by this warped idea of control?
So our mission here is to take you right inside this tragedy. We'll look at the image they projected, the very real needs of their 6 children, and how the increasing pressure from social services pushed them towards this unbelievable choice, exposure or murder. Let's start where it all unraveled. Shiregreen, it's a suburb of Sheffield, pretty typical, quiet place usually. But around 7:30 a.m., Friday, May 24th, 2019, that calm just shattered.
Yeah, the emergency response was, well, it was immediate and huge. We're talking Gregg House Road flooded with police and ambulances.
How many? What are the sources saying?
At least 12 to 15 police cars, maybe more. 4 road ambulances. Even the air ambulance was scrambled. You see that many blue lights, you know it's something truly catastrophic inside that house.
And it all kicked off with a welfare check request, right? A friend of Sarah Barris, who was 34 at the time, got this incredibly disturbing text message.
Yeah, just before the police were called. And that text, it was quoted everywhere later. It was chilling because it was both a confession and like a cry for help almost.
What did it say exactly?
Sarah texted, "He's trying to kill us and Tristan and Blake are already dead."
Wow. Straight up confirmation of fatalities.
Exactly. So the police had to treat it as an active, potentially dangerous scene. They had to force entry.
And inside, what did they find?
They found the 2 adults, Sarah Barris and Brandon Machen, he was 39, and 6 children. The ages ranged from just 7 months old up to 14 years.
And the text message? It was accurate.
Tragically, yes. The 2 oldest boys, 14-year-old Blake and 13-year-old Tristan, they were unresponsive.
Oh, God.
An emergency crews worked on them, rushed them to Sheffield Children's Hospital, but they were both pronounced dead not long after. That's when everyone knew this wasn't some accident, it was deliberate.
But the other 4 children?
Yeah.
The younger ones?
They were alive, thankfully, all under 13, but clearly in severe distress. They were taken to the hospital, too, for assessment. They'd survived whatever happened, but the trauma, well, we'll get into that. It's unimaginable.
Even at that early stage, investigators must have been thinking, how?
Yeah.
How does a mother and the man everyone thought was just her supportive half-brother, how do they end up involved in something like this?
Absolutely. That's the core question. So for this deep dive, we need to work backwards from those arrests. Trace it back to the secret that seems to be the motive for it all.
The relationship between Sarah Barris and Brandon Machen.
Exactly. The mother of 6 and the man who was actually the biological father of all of them. That's where this whole dark story really starts.
Okay, so let's talk about the image they projected. For nearly 20 years, Sarah Barris managed to maintain this facade, didn't she?
Oh, absolutely. A brilliant performance, you could say. To neighbors, schools, even social workers, she was the picture of a single mom doing her absolute best against the odds. 6 kids, clearly a struggle, but she seems so determined.
And professionals bought into it.
Completely. The descriptions are consistently positive. Loving, caring, competent. She wasn't someone hiding from services. She actively sought help. She fought hard, that's a quote, fought hard for her children's access to appropriate support, especially for their special needs.
Right, she seemed proactive, engaged.
Exactly. And that level of engagement, her ability to articulate the issues, it basically disarmed the system. They saw her as an ally.
And Brandon Machen.
Well,
What was his role in this public picture?
he played the part of the supportive relative, the helpful half-brother or uncle figure. He didn't officially live there, but he was around constantly, helping out. It looked like family support for a struggling single parent.
Which provided cover, essentially, allowed her to maintain the single mom story while having his help.
Precisely. But the first layer of the actual lie was about who fathered the children.
What was the story there?
She claimed all 6 kids had the same father, but he was just out of the picture, not involved. Which, happens. It wouldn't necessarily trigger major alarms on its own, especially given how cooperative she seemed otherwise.
But what she told the children about their father, That was something else.
Yeah, that's where it gets really bizarre. She told them their father had died serving in the military in World War II.
World War II, hold on. The oldest child was 14 in 2019. That timeline makes absolutely no sense.
None at all, historically. World War II ended in 1945. But think about it from her perspective, or maybe from the perspective of trying to control the narrative for young children. It's a dramatic story, a heroic, tragic end. And crucially, it's unchallengeable for a child. Stops any awkward questions about who dad is or why he isn't around.
So it was a fantasy designed to protect the real secret.
Exactly. Shows the lengths they went to, the constant high-stakes manipulation needed to keep the truth hidden. Because the truth, well, it was devastating.
Oh, it was.
Investigators uncovered that Sarah Barris and Brandon Mawashin were half-siblings. They shared the same mother, and they'd been in a secret, incestuous sexual relationship for almost 20 years.
Since they were teenagers.
Yes, started in their teens, continued right through. And the most shocking part, the core of the whole secret, Brandon Mawashin wasn't just the uncle figure. He was the biological father of all 6 children.
Wow. All 6 kids. Born from this hidden, illegal relationship.
Mm-hmm. And they managed to keep it completely secret. They lived separately. Brandon had his own place. They never publicly acknowledged their real relationship or his paternity. It was, like you said, a decades-long conspiracy. Keep the kids, keep the secret, avoid the consequences.
That secret then became like a time bomb, didn't it?
Absolutely. As long as Sarah kept up the good mom act and nobody dug too deep into the father question, they were relatively safe. But, as we'll see, the children's own issues, combined with things they couldn't control, started to put serious cracks in that facade. The whole thing was built on sand.
Right. So to understand why the authorities started looking closer, we need to understand the children involved. These weren't kids without challenges, were they?
No, not at all. They needed quite a bit of support. Blake, the 14-year-old, he had an ADHD diagnosis. People described him as, very genuine, expressive, always smiling, apparently, even when things were tough for him.
And Tristan, the 13-year-old.
Tristan had autism, ADHD as well, and learning difficulties, but he was known for being really kind. He even did charity stuff, like dyeing his hair blue for a friend with cancer. Just fundamentally decent kids, by all accounts.
And the family was already known to social services because of these needs.
Yes, but initially it wasn't an adversarial relationship. Sarah had been cooperating since about 2016, actively getting help for the ADHD and autism diagnoses. She was using the system, which, again, reinforced that image of her as a capable mother trying to cope.
So what changed? What ramped up the scrutiny?
Things shifted dramatically when really serious allegations surfaced. The first major issue was in November 2018. An allegation of sexual assault was made against Blake, the older boy.
Okay, that's serious.
Very, very. And then just weeks before the murders in May 2019, a similar allegation was made against Tristan.
Against the 13-year-old, too. Oh, wow.
Yeah, 2 serious allegations involving harmful sexual behavior involving the 2 oldest boys in relatively quick succession. That was the tipping point for social services.
How did that change things officially?
The family status was immediately upgraded. They went from being seen as child in need, which is more about support, to child in protection.
And that means?
That's a huge shift. Child in protection triggers immediate, intensive, multi-agency involvement. Police, social workers, health. Everyone starts working together very closely, often under legal frameworks, to assess the risk inside the home. The focus becomes safeguarding above all else.
Right, the scrutiny level just skyrockets.
Exactly. And this is where Sarah and Brandon's secret became a massive problem. To do a proper risk assessment, especially with allegations like these, the agencies needed to know who the father was. They had to rule out potential abuse from within the home, understand who had access to the children.
It's standard procedure in these cases, right? Identify all key adults.
Absolutely standard. But for Sarah, that standard question was impossible to answer truthfully without revealing the incest, the illegal relationship, the whole 20-year lie.
So the pressure was building intensely on her.
Overwhelmingly. She became terrified that the truth would come out, and if it did, she was convinced they'd take all 6 children away, put them into care. And for her, losing that control, that ownership, that was the worst imaginable fate.
The situation was becoming critical. Was there a specific event that pushed things over the edge?
Yes, it seems there were 2 key moments right at the end. On May 22nd, 2019, social services held a big multi-agency meeting about the family. Sarah Barris was specifically told she couldn't attend.
Excluded from the meeting about her own family.
Exactly. She was losing control of the process precisely when the stakes were highest for her.
In the second thing.
The final trigger appears to have been a phone call. On the evening of May 23rd, the night before the murders, she got a call from someone, it's not clear who, complaining about another alleged incident involving Tristan. And this caller explicitly threatened to report it straight to social services.
So another allegation and an immediate threat of official reporting.
Right. That phone call seems to have been the point of no return. Sarah must have realized exposure was imminent, maybe just hours away. The time for lying was over. The clock started ticking on the murder plan.
So facing exposure, they made this horrific decision. The sources say they justified it by deciding the children were better off dead than in care.
It's such a chilling phrase, isn't it? It really reveals Sarah's mindset. This wasn't about protecting the children. It was about absolute control. And this idea, this possessiveness, it wasn't new. People had apparently often heard her say to the kids, I gave him life and I can take it away.
Wow. That reframes them entirely as her property.
Completely. Her motive, as she expressed it later, confirmed this. I'd rather kill them and kill myself than lose them to care. The fear of the state intervening, of losing that total control, it was more powerful than any instinct to protect them.
But was this decision sudden, or did she wrestle with it?
The messages show she definitely wrestled with it, which almost makes the outcome even more disturbing. She wrote about her options. Mass murder, putting them all in care, checking into the local nut house. Those were the paths she saw.
Stark choices.
And then there's this incredibly contradictory line she wrote. I love my kids too much to kill them. I can't put them into care for the same reason.
How do you even square that? Loving them too much to kill them, but also too much to let them go into care.
It's completely warped logic, isn't it? She frames not being able to let them go as this act of intense love, but that very same possessive love is what ultimately allowed her to make, as the reports call it, the horrific final decision to kill them. It was about her feelings, her inability to cope with separation, not about their well-being.
So the decision was made. What was the first step in the actual plan?
It started immediately after that phone call on the evening of May 23rd. The first attempt was poisoning.
How did they do that?
They gathered up whatever tablets they could find in the house. Sources confirm most of it was prescribed ADHD medication belonging to one of the children. They literally turned the kids' own medicine against them.
Oh my God, which children did they target?
The 4 eldest. And it wasn't passive. They forced them to take the pills. The court heard the children were terrified. They fought back, resisted, but Barris and Machin overpowered them.
And they expected this to kill them.
That seems to have been the plan, that they'd die in their sleep. And Sarah even tried to cover it up preemptively. She posted on social media that the kids had come down with a sickness bug.
Setting up an alibi, basically.
Exactly, masking the murder attempt as illness. Just maintaining that facade right to the bitter end.
But the poisoning didn't work.
No. By the morning of May 24th, the kids were obviously very ill, vomiting, hallucinations reported, but they were awake. The dose hadn't been fatal. Sarah realized the drugs had not worked.
And that failure must have caused panic.
Absolute panic. The plan had failed. Time was running out. She immediately called Brendan Machin, told him to get back to the house right away. They needed a plan B.
And plan B involved?
While waiting for him, or perhaps as he arrived, she started frantically searching online, on her phone, looking for other ways to kill them. The searches were specific: suffocation, strangulation, drowning. She was researching methods for the final brutal acts.
Okay, so Brandon Machin gets back to the house. The poisoning failed. What happens next? This is early morning, May 24th.
Yeah, around 5 a.m. onwards, and the shift is immediate. They move from, the relative distance of pills to direct physical violence.
Who do they target first?
The 2 older boys. Tristan, the 13-year-old, the one involved in the most recent allegation, the child with autism and ADHD, he was first. Sarah Barris strangled him herself.
His own mother. How?
She used the cord from her dressing gown. The details are horrific. It took about 3 minutes. Sources say Tristan struggled violently. He pleaded with her to stop.
Pleaded with her?
Yes. But she didn't stop. She kept going until he was unconscious.
And Blake, the 14-year-old.
Blake saw it happen. He saw his mother killing his younger brother. He apparently shouted out at her. And immediately, Brandon Machin attacked Blake. He strangled him with his bare hands.
So they worked together, one after the other.
Yes. And even after they'd strangled them both into unconsciousness, they weren't finished. They then placed plastic bags, some reports say bin bags, over the boys' heads.
Why? To make absolutely sure.
To ensure their certain death, that's the phrase used in court. It was methodical, calculated, ensuring there was no chance of survival.
So Blake and Tristan were gone. Did they stop there?
No. Their plan was to kill all six. Immediately after murdering the boys, they turned their attention to the younger children. They ran a bat.
Oh no, drowning.
They attempted to drown one of the younger children. Reports suggest it was an 11-year-old. They tried repeatedly.
But the child survived.
Yes. The child fought back desperately, was described as hysterical, and somehow that resistance, that fight, it worked. The attempt failed.
Did that failed attempt maybe break the momentum?
It seems possible, because it was after that failed drowning attempt that Sarah Bear stopped the killing. It's bizarre, but that child's struggle seems to have halted things. She then took the 4 surviving children, barricaded themselves in a bedroom.
And that's when she called the police and sent the text.
Exactly. She initiated the sequence that led to their capture, but only after the murders of the 2 older boys and the failed attempt on a 3rd child.
When the police arrived, did she confess immediately?
No, her first instinct was still deception. She tried to lie, said Blake and Tristan were just out with neighbors, trying to buy time, delay the discovery.
But the truth came out quickly.
It did, and not from her. It came from one of the surviving children, a devastating detail. One of the kids, presumably non-verbally due to shock, made a gesture to an officer, drew a hand across the throat.
Signaling what had happened.
Precisely, and Sarah's reaction confirmed it. She immediately shouted, "Stop, don't say that, the game was up."
Did she try to blame Brandon?
Initially, yes. She tried to paint him as the sole aggressor, the one who forced the drugs, did the strangling.
But the evidence pointed to her involvement.
Overwhelmingly. The police found her online search history for murder methods. The text messages talking about mass murder, her known statements about giving life and taking it away, it proved her methodical planning and active participation.
So, faced with that evidence,
They both ultimately pleaded guilty. Guilty to the murders of Blake and Tristan, guilty to the attempted murders of the 4 younger children, and guilty to the conspiracy to murder all 6.
the sentencing must have been intense. Sheffield Crown Court, November 2019. How did the court frame these crimes?
The prosecution summed it up starkly. Nothing but evil. And the judge delivered significant sentences. Life imprisonment for both Sarah Barris and Brandon Machin.
With a minimum term.
Yes, a minimum of 35 years before they can even be considered for parole. It's a very long sentence, reflecting the severity. They'll be in their 70s before any possible release. Pleading guilty probably avoided a whole life order, but 35 years is still substantial.
Did the judge address Sarah Barris's motive directly? Her love for the children?
Very much so. The judge specifically said to her, "You considered your love for them and fear of being parted from them entitled you to take their lives as well as your own," directly calling out that twisted sense of entitlement and control and connecting it back to that phrase witnesses heard. "I gave you life, I can take it away."
Beyond the perpetrators, the real lasting tragedy is with the survivors, isn't it? The 4 younger children.
Absolutely. All under 13 at the time. The court heard extensive, heartbreaking details about the psychological damage. These aren't wounds that just heal, they're life-altering.
What kind of impact did it have?
Well, the 2 older survivors actually witnessed their brothers being murdered. The level of trauma from that is just unimaginable. They're left trying to understand how the people meant to protect them could do that.
Did this manifest in specific fears or behaviors?
Yes. The child who was nearly drowned developed a specific, intense fear of baths. Understandable, but terrible. And perhaps most chillingly, one child expressed fears about their own future.
How so?
Worried they might become a murderer when they grew up, because that's what their mom and Brandon did. Carrying this fear of somehow inheriting that evil, it's an incredible burden for a child.
That's just devastating. Did the children express what they wanted to happen to their parents?
One child's wish was reported to the court, a raw, powerful statement, hoping their parents would be jailed for 300 years. It just shows the depth of their need for safety, for permanent separation.
The crime didn't just affect the family, did it? The community, the house itself.
No, the impact was wider. The house on Greg House Road became the symbol of the horror. It was deeply distressing for neighbors who'd witnessed the commotion and had to live with the aftermath.
So what happened to the house?
Sanctuary Housing, who owned it, made the decision to demolish it in February 2021. It was seen as necessary for the community to heal.
And what's there now?
They created a memorial garden on the site, a quiet space with a tree planted in the center, a place for remembrance, trying to bring something positive from such darkness.
And Blake and Tristan themselves. How were they remembered?
Their funeral saw a huge outpouring of community grief and support. Over 300 motorcycles escorted the funeral cortege, a really powerful farewell for the 2 boys.
After a tragedy like this, especially involving children, known to services, there's always a review, right? A serious case review or SCR.
Yes, it's mandatory. The Sheffield Children's Safeguarding Partnership commissioned one to look closely at everything leading up to the murders. Were warning signs missed? Could it have been prevented?
And what did the SCR conclude? It was published in August 2020, I believe.
It was complex. It did find areas where systems could be improved, definitely. But the headline finding regarding whether the murders could have been predicted was, well, it was quite surprising.
What did they find?
The review concluded there was no evidence that practitioners could have predicted or anticipated the parents' actions.
Really? That feels difficult to accept. Given the level of involvement, the complex needs, the sexual assault allegations, that bizarre WW2 father story, no warning signs.
Well, the argument put forward by the SCR was essentially that Sarah Barris was exceptionally good at manipulating the system. She used the very services designed to help as a way to shield herself. Professionals genuinely saw her as this loving, caring, and competent mother who was fighting for her kids.
So her perceived competence was actually part of the deception.
Exactly. She was articulate, she self-referred for help, she seemed totally cooperative. The system saw an ally, someone working with them, not someone they needed to investigate intensely as a potential threat herself.
They found evidence of good practice then.
Yes. The SCR stated there was significant evidence of effective and caring practice with the children by all agencies. The failure wasn't necessarily lack of effort, it was that the core secret, the incestuous paternity, was hidden so effectively. Sarah consistently refused to identify the father, sticking to her story.
And they couldn't force her.
Not easily. Without concrete proof or stronger legal grounds, and with her presenting as cooperative in other ways, it was difficult. David Ashcroft, who chaired the partnership, admitted that knowing Mechen was the father would have changed everything, raised the risk level immediately, especially after the allegations, but they didn't know. They couldn't act just on suspicion or her refusal to clarify the father's identity.
So the sheer strangeness of the truth, the incest, the 6 children, the decades of secrecy, it just fell outside what the system was designed to detect.
It seems that way. It was such an extreme outlier. However, the review wasn't a whitewash. It made important recommendations.
Like what?
Better training on understanding harmful sexual behavior within families, taking a more holistic view, looking at the whole family dynamic, especially if a parent is very protective of someone's identity.
And focusing more on figures like Brandon Mechen, the uncle who was always there.
Precisely. Paying much closer attention to male caregivers whose role isn't clear, the system recognized it needed to be more questioning of those ambiguous relationships.
So ultimately, the review points back to the parents' fear.
Yes, the overwhelming fear of the secret getting out, of losing control, losing the children, a fear Sarah expertly hid until the very last moments when she realized the system was finally closing in. They saw the mask, not the monster behind it.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Shiregreen, it's just a truly devastating story of control, deep deception, and the catastrophic fallout from this hidden incestuous relationship.
Yeah, we've followed the path from that carefully built facade Sarah Barris and Brandon Mechen created right through to the desperate, violent acts when social services started getting too close to the truth.
A methodical plan, wasn't it? The failed poisoning attempt first.
Using the kid's own ADHD medication.
And then the move to just sheer physical brutality,
Yeah.
strangling Blake and Tristan, and the attempted murder of the younger child, leaving 4 children utterly traumatized.
And the motive, as the judge highlighted, this profoundly warped idea of ownership. That their love somehow gave them the right to kill rather than lose control. Sarah's phrase, "I gave them life and I can take it away." It just encapsulates that chilling entitlement.
It really forces you to think, doesn't it, when the fear of being exposed, the fear of the authorities, becomes more terrifying than the act of murdering your own children. What does that say about the darkness that can hide behind a seemingly normal family front, especially one built on such a huge lie?
The parent essentially turns the child into an object, a possession to be controlled or disposed of.
And that leads us to the final thought for you, the listener. Consider this. The very systems meant to protect these children were skillfully manipulated by Sarah Barris, presenting herself as their champion. Given that the killers were their mother and their biological father, bound by this terrible secret and this obsession with control, what is the silent, lifelong burden carried by those 4 surviving children? They have to live knowing their entire existence was based on a lie, and that the people who created them also tried to destroy them, all in the name of some twisted, possessive idea of love. That ongoing legacy of betrayal, that's the deepest horror of Shiregreen.